Unfiltered, episode 5. Here we are again. Dr. Philip Heisterkamp at your service. I am with
Pastor Isaac Wangler.
That's right.
Together we are coming as men. As unfiltered.
As unfiltered. Yes.
More great content. And we're kind of going to be talking about content a little bit today.
Yeah.
From what I've gathered.
Absolutely.
In our pre-podcast conversation. We've been watching some movies, been reading some books,
right.
taking some things in lately. So maybe we'll be getting to all that here in just a little bit.
That's right. Because we had a plan and a guest, and they would have sat right there. But
right there.
They're not here because when life arises, there are things you must do to handle life.
Right. Responding
to
to the moments, driving the tractor.
That's our motto, unfiltered, developing tactics to meet life's demands. And that's what happened with our guest, as he rose to the occasion to meet life's demands. But that meant he could not be here with us. So,
which meant reprioritizing his time, his day, his weekend.
That's right.
That's an important thing to do.
Correct.
Because as great as this is, there are things that are higher priorities.
This is absolutely true. Yes. Such as the resources grouping that we have as one of the 4 areas is time, energy, money, and how to manage those things. And he had to do all 3 of those on the fly immediately.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There was a plan changed.
Yes.
Yeah. Responding to change.
Right.
Responsiveness, man. That's part of it, isn't it?
It is. Such as life.
Is one response after another.
Correct. Like, what more can you do? I mean, the way the world has a way, like things go on, things happen to you, around you, and all you can do is respond to it and do your best.
And having a plan to respond, I think, and practice. I don't know about practicing, but having maybe thought through or having developed a way that you follow will help you respond in a way that is appropriate.
Yeah. You got to think some things through. You've got to prep in your head, like, what's the saying? Plan for the worst, but expect the best. No, expect the worst, plan.
I think you had
the first time.
Yeah, I think you had it the first
time.
Expect
the worst, plan for the best. No, plan
for the worst.
Expect the best.
I think that's got to be it.
That'll be fair. Lindsay's on a mic. She'll chime in at some point. Say what's up.
Hi, what's up?
Hi, what's up? That's good. And she can look things up for us, so hey.
See if we utilize that.
Yeah.
Helpful tool.
Let's use that screen over here a couple of times, but.
So, response, planning. How do you think people can prepare? Like we're talking about our friend, the next one of the guests that will come on, having to respond. How do you think people can prepare ahead of time for the circumstance that will eventually arise where a response is required? What are some ways that you can get ready when you don't necessarily know what's coming? Because like what happened with our friend, I don't think he knew. I mean, that wasn't on the radar. It wasn't like this might happen, so here's the contingency if it does. It's just like kind of out of nowhere, like a blindside change.
Yes.
Immediately. How do you prepare for something like that? 2
things come to mind immediately. And one is in my dad, CFP, financial planner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has his money flow strategy, and he talks about in one bucket of money, you need to have savings, emergency savings. And he talks about 6 months expenses sitting there untouched. It's not money you spend. It's not money you switch around. It's just there in a tank. And I don't know if Dave Ramsey has the same thing or my dad's my Dave Ramsey, which, so that was the first one is as long as you have that resource and money's not the only resource to keep in mind. There are other things that you may need to have on hand, spare batteries or all the things you have go wrong at the farm here and there. You've got to have your stockpile of gear to handle situations.
Right.
So, but money, if you've got the money, then you have options, right?
Sure.
Which it's not all about money, but that's just like a big one. If you have access to it, you should have it.
It's a very versatile tool.
Yes, but possibly more important is perspective. I think you need perspective because even if the world crumbles around you, at the end of the day, if you know it's going to be okay, no matter what, that can kind of give you this peace that surpasses understanding, And I know a lot of our peace comes from faith, and almost anything can happen to me at the end of the day, and I know, like, there's security that is still there, you know? And so that, keeping that perspective, that was, Stephen Furtick, he had a method too, where he would tell people to play it out in your mind and say, what if this happens? And then he says, that would, and then fill in the blank. What would the conclusion be? And then the last part was, God will still be there for me. You know, God will not leave me in the lurch, sort of a thing.
Sure.
And so no matter what happened or what the conclusion was or what the outcome was, the final stage was the Lord was still going to be at your side. And even if I were to die right now, I have security in knowing where I'm going.
Yep.
And so that's just valuable perspective that kind of keeps you from blowing the volcano.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great point, because I mean, even Jesus, I mean, he talked about how in the world there will be tribulation, which means you're gonna have difficult things happen while you're in the world. But he said, "I leave you peace. Peace I leave with you." So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I mean, perspective of the peace you have in someone else is important. And if all you've got is the world, I mean, I guess I don't know the answer for that, because that's not where mine is. But
well, the world seems to continue to let you down.
Seems like it.
Like, imagine your faith being on the political scene right now in one camp or the other.
Yeah.
Because if you're on one team, the last 4 years was miserable.
Yeah.
If you're on the other team, then you're gearing up for a miserable time. But it's like, why rest there? You know?
Either one is bad place to be.
Right.
Because it's all dependent on a decision that you can't control. You really can't do anything about.
Right.
And that changes every 4 years.
All there is stress, anxiety, and turmoil there waiting for you. There's no security there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if a lot of the emotional or kind of mental things people deal with today is just because of the place they're looking for peace.
Oh, yeah.
I would venture to say that is the case. A lot of the angst or even depression. There's a proverb that says, anxiety will lead to depression. I mean, that's like a paraphrase of it, but that is what it says. And so I think a lot of that is tied up in worry and fear of things. And I mean, if it's in the world, there's plenty to be worried about. But
well, it's amazing. And you and I have the privilege of getting to talk to people on a regular basis and as our careers, you know, and I feel like I learn a lot. I'm sure you learn a ton.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to me and they're in this posture pattern that creates stress in a couple key spots, like shoulders, neck, or like hips and low back sort of thing. And then I've gotten in the habit of just asking, like, so what's that about? Like, yeah, I know you're in pain, and I know, like, I'm going to lay you down and we can do something about it right now. But I want to know, like, what's the source of that? What's that about? And, you know, it seems like 3 out of 5 is, oh, well, work has just been crazy. And then trying to balance that and balance the family, and there's just a lot going on right now, and work stress, you know, which
pressure,
which is another realm of things, is because when things come up as a surprise and you get to handle that right there, but then when you're trying to juggle 10 things and there's something pressing that you need to handle, but you can't quite get to it, that I think is when stress becomes more real and less whimsical, you know, like, if you feel me, if my finger gets cut off right now, it's like, okay, this becomes priority 1. We're going to the hospital. Got to stop the bleeding. Let's get it sewn back on if we can, you know. But if you've just got this little nagging cut and it's bugging you, but yet it's like the baby's crying, then the cut's going to wait. But then eventually it gets a little deeper, it gets a little more sore, it gets a little worse, right? So how do we deal with those?
Like the prolonged, You know, I think it takes intent. I mean, how does a wound heal? I think it's by giving it care. I think rest is a part of that.
Rest.
We've had a lot of conversations about rest over the last several months and the need for rest in recovery. I mean, to take that into a physical like workout, I mean, you have to rest for your body to recover. I mean, you threw that statistic out a couple of times ago when we were podcasting about how like in sleeping, like the first 4 or 6 or something like that. A huge amount of the time is just about recovering. So rest is leading to recovery. And so I think intentional times of resting from the pressure, from the stress, from the wound, that's important to do. I think knowing, you know, what's wrong is important. We talk about like a physical cut. That's something that's really visible, but I think a lot of the time there are hurts or wounds or pressures or stresses that are not so visible. And when we allow those to just go on and like we feel the pain of it, but we can't identify the source of the pain, we never deal with it. If I know that like you probably get this with people where they say, oh yeah, this hurts, but it, could be any of these things. And it's like, well,
correct.
So how are we going to fix it if we don't know what's wrong with it? How are we going to mend if we don't know what's actually broken? So I think identifying root issues is important, but I think the trouble with that is the closer you get to wounds, the more they hurt. The more you start examining, the more it hurts. And I think sometimes we would rather take kind of the dull pain that's going to hurt us more in the long term rather than deal with the immediate stress or hurt of going in and cleaning out a wound and finding what's wrong and cleaning it up and fixing it up so that it can begin to heal. Sometimes that can seem more painful, up front to do that than it would be to just kind of leave it alone. But the problem with that is then those wounds, they fester. It's like a splinter, you get a splinter, if it's in there deep, it kind of hurts to get that out. You got to go digging in. And
right.
Sometimes like my mom used to always she'd take a needle and she'd stick it in there and then start pulling. I don't know. Maybe this isn't how everybody does it.
Nicole.
Yeah. She'd start
what are we
pulling
doing?
it out. You'd hear one of your siblings up in the bedroom and you're like, okay, they're getting a splinter pulled out or something like that. But it's it hurts up front, but in the long term, you're going to get to keep your hand. Where if you just let that thing sit in there, it's going to get infected and you're going to have all kinds of problems. I think that happens to us on emotional levels or definitely on relational levels. How many relationships end because of something someone did years ago, but it never got resolved, and then that just compounded with more problems the further you went on. You get offended and you never get over it. You have unforgiveness over something that was done, and that person might not even know what they did wrong, and all of a sudden you don't ever want to talk to them again. I just think leaving scars, or not scars, but leaving wounds undealt with, uncleaned, untreated is a problem.
What a good point. And we're reading the same book right now, Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. And I was telling you just the other day about this exact concept that struck me. And you were like, yeah, that was chapter 4 in the book. And I was like, wow, okay. So it struck us both that way. But one of the author Eldredge said that everyone has a wound. He says no one escapes childhood or adulthood without a wound from someone, and that oftentimes as a man, and this book is really about developing
masculinity,
authentic masculinity, not toxic masculinity, but true masculinity, one that honors women and the people around them, not womenizing people. And he was making the point that a lot of those wounds in men and young men come from the father, which often stem from generational wounds that have been passed down and not dealt with, which is just fascinating to me that,
Well, bringing that, the generational aspect of it up, I think that's something that you see with people a lot. A fair amount at least. And I've heard a lot of people talk about, I don't know if you've ever heard generational curses, that kind of thing. I know people who are up on that, and I'm not saying that it's absolutely impossible. I believe what the word says, that Christ bore the curse for us, and so we don't have to be under a curse of generational nature or some other kind.
Amen.
But I do think that we see something that looks like a generational curse in that there are wounds or destructive habits or things that are never really addressed or dealt with. They're just passed on from one to the next. And so I would almost say it's not so much like a spiritual curse as it is a problem that's never dealt with.
Sure.
Just kind of ignored and allowed to continue on. One that I've heard of is alcoholism, and that just runs in my family. And some people might say that's a generational curse. Well, I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's a matter, and maybe there are cases where somebody is under, a spiritual attack in that way, and there is a real battle to be fought. I think sometimes, though, it is a matter of training. It's a matter of dealing with hurts, with wounds, with unforgiveness and offense. Something that's amazing is a lot of the time what people hold on to and are offended by and offended about, that's the exact thing that they end up doing. That's like, if we were to talk in a kind of sin, using that
terminology.
A lot of the time the sin somebody else can't forgive anybody else for is what they end up falling into.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's that fixation. It's this focus on, this is what hurt me.
Yeah.
But then by fixating on that, you end up in the same boat. That's why forgiveness is so important. I mean, not only for, the element of receiving forgiveness and, repenting and turning from sin, but also like in you. I mean, when you don't forgive, you are holding on. The scripture says, whatever is bound on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever's loosed on earth will be loosed in heaven. I mean, how many times do we hold on to sin in ourselves? It's not that, Christ doesn't have the power to take it away from us or wash us clean, but it's like, we have to let go of that.
Yeah. And how many times, I know I've done it. I know I've done it where I've gotten into a little tiff with someone. And then while you're talking about this thing, something from the past gets brought up. And then it's just like rubbing dirt in the wound. It's just like opening up all these old sores that were never dealt with.
Right.
But you're still carrying around, and you don't always realize you're carrying them around until there's an opportunity to go in there.
Yeah.
And
people call it like baggage. Another term
carrying
for it,
around baggage.
Which it's like the wound. I mean, whether you want to use that term of the pain of it, the hurt of it, the damage of it, or you want to use the term baggage. I mean, that's like, it's pressure, it's crushing. I mean, both do the same thing. They make it harder to live a full life because you are either under this weight,
right,
or you are impaired by a wound.
Right.
And
can you imagine just that weighing on your mind all day long? But then imagine your posture. If we go there for a second, what happens to your posture as you're just weighed down, and it's like gravity just becomes heavier and heavier, and your shoulders just round and your head falls forward, and now you're walking around like this. And and then that's what I see in the office
physically
is the result of, dare I say, long-term baggage weighing on the mind, infiltrating your posture and how your muscles move and all of that. And then one chiropractic manual adjustment or a tonal adjustment, for those who are aware of what that is not usually enough to correct and fully. It's not enough because it doesn't address the root wound.
Yeah.
Because then you correct something, but then you go back out and then it weighs on you again.
Sure.
And you're in this pattern and it's back and forth. And then that is really what
it's
corrupting long term.
It's like treating the symptoms and not the sickness.
Correct. You've got to get to the root.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think, we are all too good at treating the symptoms and not addressing the real issue.
That's modern society.
It is. It's get the surface looking right, feeling right. Just deal with that kind of stuff.
Right on.
But that's not effective in the long term. So
no. Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard to do that.
It is difficult.
And especially
it is the harder route. Yeah.
And I think especially because it is uncommon. I mean, that's not what most will tell you should do. Most would just say, get yourself feeling better in the short term.
Right.
Do it. Feels good now.
Which, a good friend will help you feel better in the moment. But,
well, I would say a good friend is going to do what's good for you in the long term.
A great friend will, yes.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Sure.
Yeah. Because I imagine just like college days and a buddy, I don't know. There's no moment in my mind where this actually happened, but it's like, okay, let's go take them drinking. Let's get them drunk and make sure they feel better. Let's let them forget all their woes for one night. And it's like, oh, what a...
Yeah. Short-term gain, long-term loss.
Yeah, there's just not...
It's like...
When we talk about everything is either producing or consuming from you, that is a consumption
the short
event
term.
Right there. Correct.
For sure.
And then the next morning it leaves you exactly where you were, arguably worse than where you were.
Great illustration is give a man a fish, eats for a day, teach a man to fish, eats for a lifetime.
And why don't we use that same concept to heal or cover up some of these wounds that are bothering people for a lifetime and then being passed down generationally?
Right.
You know,
We should.
should.
I think we
Yeah.
should.
We should. Now the question is, how do we do that?
I think bringing awareness to it is part of it.
Awareness,
I
bringing
think,
it to
I
the
think
light.
the conversation
Sure.
is really the start, because if nobody brings it up, like, I don't think it's that people are actively like trying to do things that are worse off. And I mean, if anybody is feeling like any of this relates to their life in any way, I mean, this isn't like a condemnation thing. We're not like coming down on you, but
right.
but
I've been through this too. I
Yeah.
have been through this and have buried old wounds that have taken weight off me. So I can speak from personal experience
Yeah.
that this process of analyzing what has hurt me and has
Mm-hmm.
altered my behavior and is creating destruction, tracing that back to the wound and then letting it go has
Yeah.
been the most beneficial thing.
but it's hard to do
It is
at
very,
first,
very
and
difficult.
it's not the common thing to do. So I think just having the conversation and like bringing light to that issue is where you have to start, because you're never gonna find your wounds in the dark. You got to have, you know, the pointing out.
How
of
true
it.
is that?
It's got to be illuminated.
Yep.
So I think having the conversation is a good place to start, and then from there, hooking up with people who you know have your long-term interest at heart and care enough about you to tell you the things that are hard to hear. I think that's important. I think everybody needs somebody like that in their life, somebody that can talk honestly to them, and, you know, done in a way that is really based out of love and care for them. Not to tear you down, but to make you better, to sharpen you.
That's what the best of friends will do. That's what, you know, someone will love you will do, is
Yeah.
they'll give you the thing you need the most and not the thing you need to feel better in the moment.
They'll tell you the truth.
Yes.
In
Yes.
a loving way,
Correct. Yeah.
which is sometimes kind of blunt. I mean, not always, but sometimes, like, you have to hear it.
Yeah.
And to hear it, you just have to like get it,
Yeah.
because the fluff sometimes reduces the impact of what's being said.
Correct.
You know, I mean, we could even, like, right now, I mean, we could be talking about this and kind of fluff it up and say, oh, well, you know, there might be some things that are wrong, or like, you know, there might be some benefits to just dealing with it in the long term instead of the short term. But like, how does that help anybody to leave it all, you know, oh yeah, just do whatever feels good? I don't think it helps.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes pulling a splinter out doesn't feel good.
Right.
So,
Right. And it's when doing what feels good violates doing what's right.
Yeah.
That's when it's really dangerous.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally.
So you've got to do the thing that doesn't feel good in order to maintain or uphold
Yeah.
what is right, what is lovely, what is good.
You got any examples of people, or, you know, if you wanted to talk about men, since we've been reading that book about men, men who did things that didn't feel good but needed to be done?
Like from pop culture and movies, or like real life?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go, whatever you think. I mean, just a question for you.
Say the rephrase your question here.
Okay, do you have any examples of that come to your mind? Examples of men that have done what did not feel good in the moment for the long-term gain.
Okay. Don't judge me here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or if you want to label me a nerd or whatnot, I'm open to judgment, actually. I'll retract my statement here. Okay. First thing that came to mind as I searched the memory banks in there, Captain America, bro. This, if you keep listening, you're going to learn that this is my, okay, I like Captain America. Okay. He's cool. He's cool. I like superhero movies. Superhero movies put people in extraordinary circumstances where their character has to shine through, and they are made to show what they are made of. Captain America is the best of the best. Movie number 3, okay? If you've seen the movie, great. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it, or just fast forward 3 minutes here, okay? Because Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, Lindsay, if you want to chime in at any point here, feel free. Tony Stark.
She likes superhero movies too.
Yeah, I think she does.
They're awesome. Why would you not like them?
Entertaining, yeah. You could make strong cases that Marvel movies have issues with them, and that's fine, because I would agree with a lot of those issues. But we're getting off the point here. Tony Stark, Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers knows who killed Tony's parents. And it actually happens to be Steve's best friend under mind control. Crazy, I know, okay? Steve knows this, doesn't tell Tony. Tony finds out. Tony gets mad. Tony starts a fight with these two guys, right? Okay. So after there's this falling out, there is unforgiveness. There is bitterness because Tony's mad at both these guys, like tries to kill them, tries to end them, basically. Okay. Steve writes a letter to Tony saying, I'm sorry. I guess I was trying to spare myself by not telling you. Like, it was selfishness. I hurt you and I regret it. And then he gives him a flip phone, an old time flip phone. This is Tony Stark. The dude's got nanotechnology already, right? And he gives him a flip phone and says, if you ever need me, you call this number and I will be there. And that's the example that comes to mind is he did what was difficult. He apologized. But somehow, and this is why I like Steve Rogers, is he still stayed true to what he believed was right. And that is he protected his friend who he deemed innocent in the crime of killing Tony's parents because there was mind control and Hydra and evil at play, right? So he protected his friend, held off Tony, and then was able to try to make amends with Tony. And then, I mean, if you watch the rest of the movies, you know, they forgive. There's forgiveness. There's reconciliation.
Sounds like he was like playing mediator in a way. Like
he got caught in the middle.
That's a tough place to be.
Yep.
In the middle.
For sure. Because then, if you don't tell the truth or you wind up withholding information from one end or the other, then shots fired at you now. Like shots fired over you or really go through you as the mediator. That's a tough place to be.
Right. Yeah, I think that is it's a really difficult role to take as being like the person that decides what's just and what's not just. I mean, that is a
very tough
place to be.
Yeah.
Grateful for the word because I feel like for me that helps a guide. You know, I had somebody ask me when I started as the pastor here in Jefferson, one of the early conversations I had with someone, they actually said like, so what are you going to do if like a married couple comes in and needs counseling? Like I think I was 24 at the time. Yeah, I was 24 and never been married. So they're like, how are you going to counsel that without any experience? And I mean, you don't know what it's like. So how could you offer anything to a married couple? And I was like, well,
I know what I'd say. I feel like I know. Okay.
You think you know what's coming?
I feel like I know what you would say here.
Do you?
Yep. I will confirm whether what you're about to say is what I think you'd say.
Well, I don't remember the exact words that came out, but the gist of it was, I don't really want to give people my own thoughts or experience or wisdom. I want to give them what the word says because I believe that's what has life and power. Yeah. So I believe that's the right judgment of God.
Yeah.
So whether I'm married or not, like that's what I'm going to give. And that's the best I've got to give is what the word would say.
Right.
So
that's what I thought you would say.
Is that what you thought? Yeah.
It's like, why would I draw from my own experience?
Yeah, you don't want that.
That's personal to me and possibly flawed for you.
Yeah.
Let's draw back to the perfect source of truth and wisdom.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
easy.
I feel like a lot of what I do is just, I try to make what's taught in the word something that we can like understand for our own life. I mean, that's like an element of what I feel like I do, just like you've used the term attainable before, like helping making it like something I can see working in my own life. And so like for marriage, I mean, I feel like that's something I can do while I might not have years of marriage to, say, well, this is how we did that or whatever. I mean, I don't think it's that difficult to put it into the context of a relationship, give some for examples. I think that's a lot of it. But ultimately, I mean, the principle has to come from that. Because if it's not coming from there, then it's coming from me. And I'm not perfect.
At what point are you all of a sudden worthy to give advice to other married couples? I mean, is it...
It's a good point, too.
Immediately after you're married, or is it 10 years, or is it 40 years, or is it... I mean, because someone's always married longer than you.
Right.
Or...
There's always a bigger fish.
Right, exactly.
Always someone better.
Right.
Or more experienced, or... Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I take it back to the word, because that's really what it's about. It's not about me. It's about what helps people.
Right.
And I'm just a means of moving that to someone's life.
Right on.
A vessel, an instrument. Which, I mean, it's probably in some way true for yourself too. I mean, like you have knowledge of things, you have experience of things, but I mean, that's not all originated from you. is it? I mean, you didn't come up with all the methods and health understandings that you have, did you? Or is that
Right.
all? I mean, that's not Philip Heister camp, not all of it.
No.
I mean, we learn things along the way.
We stand
get
on
revelation
the shoulders.
on the way. Yeah.
Where's that quote from?
Standing on the shoulders
of the giants that come before. It wasn't Einstein, or
should look that up.
you should look that up.
We stand on the shoulders of those who've come
Or
before.
Edison, or someone who invented something significant. One of those guys.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Where I went to Bible college, they used the analogy of a relay race, which fits
Sure.
with Scripture, talking about the race of life, and they would say it's one generation passing the baton to the next to run the next leg of the race,
Right on.
toward
Right
the
on.
finish line.
Yeah.
So it's valid.
Isaac Newton.
Isaac Newton, founder of modern physics, or Newton's laws of motion. Did he do some thermodynamics too? It's besides the point.
That's a
But
question for Tyler. I don't know.
Big T, we need you.
Leave a comment about
Yeah.
Isaac Newton.
If you have any insight into Newton's findings,
Right.
please let us know. Well, that was a good relational topic right there. That was deeper than I thought we were going to get into. Just
Right off the bat, just
hip firing right there. That was great. That was excellent. Because
this is how our conversations go, though.
this is
isn't it? It's
generally,
like,
yeah.
just kind of start with nothing, and then
And
here we are in the
Yep.
deep.
and so starts the podcast.
Right.
And to the disdain, or not the disdain, but the patience of our wives to wait for us to finish talking.
Right.
Yeah,
Taylor's in the room right now,
correct.
getting a look.
Well, I have another. I find, and this is just me in the health field too, in chiropractic, and I find philosophy very interesting. And so I've been mildly diving into chakras. Okay. But there's a statement here before we get too off into the weeds. The statement about chakras is chakra number 6 has to do with light, and it deals with insight, and it's blocked by illusion. And the statement here is the greatest illusion in the world is that of separation. Things we see as separate and different are actually one and the same. So I was thinking about this. Like okay, let's not get too off into the weeds here, okay? But like the America borders, like you cross a imaginary line and now you're in South Dakota, right? But it's like, it's all America. It's all land. It's all part of the earth. The illusion at play is boundaries, that it's separation. Truly, when you strip all that away, it's seamless, But we've put an illusion of separation there. And if we're going to touch a hot button, I feel the same about race. Like, we have this illusion that because your skin color is different than mine, we're different, and therefore we're separate, and therefore we can't or shouldn't mix, or whatever conclusion you want to draw there. But it's like, this is a person. This is a human with a spirit and a heart who doesn't deserve to be taken care of with the basic human rights and needs, And so that has mildly bothered me when I think about all the illusions of separation that we have put in. And again, it just seems in my perspective right now, there is a giant war in the political scene.
Yep.
Right wing, left wing, or whatever other political party you want to put in there. But it's like this illusion of separation has significantly complicated things.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts, because I don't fully agree with that, because I think there are real separations. There are real boundaries.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
Again, not to get in the weeds, just a real quick touch on it. You talk about, we're in Iowa, we drive across the border to South Dakota. Well, there is a real difference. There is a real separation, because the governance of that land is different than the land that we're within. And while there may be some similarities, there are also differences. If we drive across the border into Illinois with our guns and we get pulled over, we're going to jail, prison, maybe going to get fined, probably going to lose them, because there's a different set of governance from one to another. So, there is elements of separation, but I understand what you're saying. And when it comes to the issue of race, I totally agree that it is ridiculous that there's so much separation, whether that is based on skin color or even culture, which I think culture can be more of a divisive thing. Like it does draw separations because people do things different. I mean, like if I go down to Oklahoma where I went to school, people talk different down there. And I mean, just I'm not trying to get political in any way here, but like, I mean, I probably look more like some of the people in Oklahoma, some people in Oklahoma. I mean, there may be outward things that look the same, but there are inward differences because of cultures where we've grown up. I mean, whether they're Caucasian and I'm Caucasian or not, I mean, different cultures. So like they all say y'all and I don't. And so they're like, I don't know, that's just a small kind of dumb little thing, but like there's a difference in culture. But in terms of like value, because I think that's really where the conversation has to go is every person valued the same? And I say yes, absolutely, because there really is not a difference. In fact, that's something we do an apologetics course at the church, and on Wednesday nights we go through that. And one of the things we talked about when we were in Genesis and looking at the time of the ark and Noah and his family like coming out, like if you believe what the word says, which I do, then everybody came from Noah and his family, his 3 sons. And so if that's the case, then we're all one race, even if we all look different. And this is something that I don't know how the world would, I mean, I don't know what science says about that today if they identify different races, but there's really just one race of humans. I mean, there may be different cultural boundaries, there may be, legal boundaries, land definition, but really we are all one race. I mean, if you
That's exactly what I'm...
Yeah, I mean, humanity is all humanity. We're all human.
Right.
Which, I mean, I think it's I don't know, I think it's a shame that there are people that disagree with that. And I think it's interesting looking at like the history of America and the way that like our culture has combined. I think about the analogy of a cultural melting pot, which is once what America was referred to. When I was in school, this is something they taught us, and I don't know what they're teaching today. I imagine it's probably more progressive than this was. But when I was in school, they taught that America's not really like a cultural melting pot anymore. It's more like a cultural salad where you've got like this group over here, you've got your tomatoes over here and you've got your lettuce over here and you've got your dressing over here.
Like a salad bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of a bunch of different things that are all just kind of coexisting around each other. And
Sure.
so I would actually say that approach, which is the more progressive approach, I would say is actually more divisive in the sense that it keeps everybody separate from each other than it does just bring everybody under the same, sense of being American.
Right.
And, I may have come from a different place, but we're here in the same land doing mostly the same things. Both humans, we have the same rights. And, I absolutely believe in equal rights. But I think, and I don't know how much of this conversation you want to go to, but I think there's a difference between equal rights and equal outcomes. And there's a lot of factors in outcomes of life. So I agree. I mean, everybody should be given the same rights. And I think that's what's great about America is for so long, it has been the land of opportunity. You have people from different backgrounds that ascend to greatness by the world's standards in America because there is opportunity for you to do that. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world where people face different sets of challenges, and some people, may start on an economic scale at a greater extent than someone else. But I mean, there's opportunity for anybody.
Yeah.
So I think America's great. And I totally agree with you that on the human value scale, all humans are equal, including babies in the womb.
There you have it.
Human life is valuable.
You've got me. I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement.
Yeah.
We've talked about this,
good.
and when you're up there in a sermon and there has to be time for the audience to align their mind with you to process. So I'm processing.
That's fine.
I mean, like I'm down with you. I don't disagree with anything you said.
Yeah.
I mean, there are several areas we could dive into,
Definitely.
But I appreciate. All right. I definitely feel most significant about the statement of equal rights, and then, I mean, equal opportunity to an extent. But the moment that you dive into trying to create equal outcome seems like an unnatural conclusion.
Sure.
That's not the way nature works.
Right.
You're basically going directly against all natural principle at that point. I mean,
well, you're trying to manipulate natural principle to have an outcome
yeah.
that it should not produce.
It may be in the modern world with technology and resources, you can create that, but at what cost? And I think, yeah, that's the price is too high. Not that I want any person to suffer. And like, I think help should be available when it's needed.
Yeah.
But not to the point where everyone becomes the same, equal outcome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we were having the conversation last night. We were talking about, like enabling and what part that plays in like outcomes. And I think that can be a dangerous part of the equation too. If we're gonna, change things where you can do whatever you want, and then we'll just make it so that the consequences of poor decisions aren't as severe, and in the same way make the consequences of good decisions much less severe in a good way as well. And so it's just this like watering down of the severity of life. I would almost say like a numbing of the good and bad that can happen as a result of good or bad decisions. And so when you do that, I think it can discourage people that want to make good decisions from doing so because there's less of a reward.
yeah.
It encourages people that want to make bad decisions to go ahead and do that because there's less of a bad reward.
Yeah.
And I think it makes people apathetic and choose to just make no decision because either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to be in about the same situation anyway. So I think in every way, it's poor because it just brings people into this place of not really doing anything, which is very unproductive. And I think that's where you get into a consumption-based environment where there is no production happening. It just is, we just won't do anything.
And on a personal standpoint, there's often times like I have to leave to go to work. And there are times where I would rather stay home and be with my wife and family, you know. But in order for me to have something valuable to bring back, I have to leave. I can't stay in that zone where things are comfortable or whatnot, And we need people in society to run ahead and figure things out so that they can bring it back to the rest of us and bring everybody else up a little bit. But you can't keep the boundaries on because then you sacrifice missing out on those things and that the argument could be made that in the alternative, you have people running ahead doing things for evil.
Yeah.
And like Mr. Hitler comes to mind here as he ran ahead, set some things up that hurt a lot of people when he brought all of his ideas and charisma into society again, And so I understand the need to want to try to keep people equal and at the same level because it reduces the amount of evil, but yet not to the point where it reduces the amount of good that can happen, So balance. And one of our chief keys on this whole podcast is creating balance between health, resources, your passions, and your relationships. Balance is the key.
Yeah.
Not all equal, because one may take more energy than the other at one given time. It's not about equal balance. It's about maintaining balance, which is totally different.
Well, and some life, like for some people, their life may demand a lot more of one than another. For the single guy who's living by himself and working, I mean, there is a relational need, but it's different.
The equation is very different.
Very different for every person.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's multivariable calculus here. This is not simple math.
Right. And I think that's the difficult thing is so often we want to get, principles of application, like tell me what decision to make, tell me how to do this, how to navigate this exactly, like for me. But in doing that, you're ostracizing another group of people whose equation isn't that equation.
Correct.
So that's why I think discussing more of the conceptual principle is important because that's what is applicable for everybody.
Yeah.
And then out of that, you can dive into the application for the individual.
I have a segue here
Okay.
for us, because last week on our last podcast we found out you've never watched Titanic,
Yeah, it's true.
but we did our homework. we watched Titanic.
We watched Titanic.
Yeah. So here along this line, diving into that realm of pop culture and
Diving in
movie.
to the Titanic.
Lindsay's watched Titanic a few times. What'd you say?
Typical middle school sleepover movie.
Oh man,
Jack.
Jack.
He's so cute.
Taylor's seen it a couple times, many times. The statement here, the whole goal is an axiom is like a simple truth that's so simple it can't be reduced anymore. Like an axiom. That's what that is supposed to mean. And something that I have had written down for a long time now is direction determines destination. Which is, when you think about it, it's so obvious.
Yep.
When you think about, well, I want to get to point B, and I'm starting from point A, so I better point in the right direction, or else I might not, right? But then, like, when you think about the movie Titanic, I love pop culture. I do. I like movies. It's relatable. You had all of this stuff going on. More speed.
Yep.
Light the last boilers. We're going to make record time across the Atlantic. They were setting their direction by making all these little decisions to where they influenced their destination, which ended up being
The bottom of the sea.
correct. Yes. Their direction took them to a place where they were not able to make their destination,
Right.
which direction in that analogy can be choices. Your choices directly influence your destination. And
Yeah. What's amazing about that, though, is they thought that they were on track to their destination. So how do you become aware of when you're making decisions that are actually going to take you to the bottom of the ocean instead of get you where you're going in record time?
what a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thinking back to the movie, I mean, I think there's a significant amount of ego involved from multiple people. Pride in this product they had made and their experience. And we have this 26 years of experience captain. He'll be able to make this maiden voyage with no issue, right? In the movie Titanic, that is. And ego was defied or inflated in the shipbuilder, the captain, the crew.
They said multiple times, even God couldn't sink this ship.
Yeah.
Dangerous statement.
Right. And then the moment the iceberg hits and the water starts flowing in, the maker of the ship says, this ship is made of steel. Like,
It's going to go
I assure
down.
you, it will sink.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that the thought, I mean,
They were so overinflated in
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we will never go down.
right.
Yes, you
right.
will.
Which it's, in a way, like a sin of omission, right? Is when you do nothing.
Yeah.
And
You don't do the thing you should have done.
this ship maker, I mean, he's sitting there knowing that, well, this ship can go down, but yet this ship is branded the unsinkable.
Yeah.
And it's like he knew it the whole time.
Right.
And he shouldn't have let anyone think that this ship was unsinkable. When it's like, I mean, I made it with a design that it's not likely, but
You know what I am thinking about too is the two guys up in the crow's nest who are
Oh.
supposed to be watching for icebergs, and the one guy, he's like, I can smell the ice. And then they're like 100 feet away, and he's like, we gotta move.
got to turn. Yeah.
Yeah, pride.
Pride.
So confident in your own direction that you lose perception.
Yeah. Which it's hard to become aware of until it happens and you know what it feels like and you can check yourself, or you have people around you who can check you for you.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know how you check that. I mean, that's just a dangerous trap
It
right
is
there.
a dangerous trap.
Yep.
Which, I would offer that one of the greatest things a parent can do for their child is
here
teach
we go.
them about avoiding that.
Yeah.
Or overcoming it, dealing with it, recognizing it.
Yep.
Even just the recognition is huge, because then you can deal with it.
Recognition of the pattern of pride.
I think
ego.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah, as you talk about that with the Titanic, I mean, I think that's the principle we see at play in the movie, because really, I mean, that ship should not have sank. I mean, if everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing,
Correct.
that ship would not have been at the bottom of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, and I mean, it's a movie, it's dramatized, so I don't know how everyone on the ship was. Captain didn't make it off, so, but I imagine it probably wasn't far off from some of the things that could have been said about the ship and
Sure.
the promotion of it.
Yep.
So, Yeah, I think pride's huge, and I mean it's biblical, man. Pride cometh before the fall. It was
How true.
literal with the Titanic.
Yeah. A big fall.
Big fall.
Big fall.
Way down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a great principle to bring up, just being aware of destination and checking yourself on the way. Yeah.
And there's 3 segments to this that I've picked up over time. So the first one being direction determines destination, direction being interchangeable with your choices. Then the next phase is the environment you are in the present determines speed of direction, which is, I mean, there's an equation. I mean, speed times time equals distance. That's physics. That's a little math and physics there. Lindsay just made the ugh.
I hate math.
No math for her.
It doesn't make sense.
What do you like? What is your subject?
I really liked literature classes in high school, but
You're like
reading and analyzing books, and like we took the AP classes for fun to analyze the books on a more
fun.
deeper level than regular level classes. It was a good time.
So this is floating your boat right now.
Yeah.
This little deep analytic of a pop culture Titanic
For
film.
sure.
Yeah. That's good.
extracting principles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The environment you're in the present determines speed of direction.
It's true. Makes me think about, like, if we're talking Titanic, they wanted to ignore that. You know, they did not want to change the speed at which they were moving
Yeah.
based on environment. They just wanted to keep plowing away, and they ended up sinking themselves because of that. So, I mean, yeah, I think you got to be realistic about your present situation. And I mean, that goes back to, you know, the areas we discuss about balancing those out and making sure everything's okay. Because, I mean, like, if I'm driving home in a blizzard, I'm not driving as fast as I do when it's clear out, because I have to be realistic about the fact that if I can't see where I'm going, I'm probably going to crash. So I got to slow down to a manageable pace. I have to, you know, move forward. I have to progress in a way that I can keep everything firing and moving.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I'm gonna make some mistakes. I'm gonna hurt myself or others.
One time, back when I was dating my wife, I was in Sioux Falls trying to get home to Iowa, whiteout conditions, and this car comes flying by me.
Oh man!
And then in the next 1 mile, 1 minute, it got exponentially worse. And they had passed me in the left lane and then had moved over to the right lane. The road got worse, so I had moved over to the left lane to try to, like, get into the little better territory. That car had ended up stopping in the right lane. And had I stayed in the right lane, I would have 100% demolished them.
Wow.
I mean, I was going 25 at that point, but they were at a dead stop, hazards were on, and I was like, why did you stop in the middle of the road after you had just zoomed by me? And I mean, it was illogical. I couldn't figure it out, but it was just I think about that a lot, because that was probably the closest I've ever been to death or major tragedy on the road. And so,
Wow.
But your direction.
Yeah, you got to be aware of your environment, circumstances,
Correct.
Dangers, hazards, use caution.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's kind of another thing. This is backtracking to the last point when you were talking about direction. Is it direction determines destination?
Yes, sir.
So I had the thought, like, what about when you're so consumed by the thought of destination that you lose sense of direction?
Mm.
You know, I'm so focused on thinking about where I'm going to be at the end that I forget to keep moving the right direction right now. You know, getting lost because I'm so focused about where I'm headed that I, like, forget where I'm going right now.
Do you have an example of that sticks out in your mind?
Well, you know, I like wrote up a thing, and maybe you read it in a newsletter I put out like a month ago, and it was about a time when I was out deer hunting, and I basically I got tunnel vision on this animal that I had shot, and I wounded it, and I was young, and I made the mistake of chasing after it immediately after I had hit it, which is bad because deer get pretty excited, and nothing runs like a deer. I mean, that's because deer run forever. And so this thing took off, and I mean, I probably followed it for, it was at least a mile. At least it felt like multiple miles, but I probably chased it for a good 25, 30 minutes into this timber, and I just got completely lost.
Oh, wow.
I was so focused on getting the deer that I completely lost sense of direction while I was chasing it. And so what happened is I'm running after this thing, and I'd get to a hilltop, and it would be on the next hilltop going down right as I got up. So I could never get another shot to
sure,
take it down.
Yep.
And it just kept getting further away. And so my dad finally, I was out hunting with him, and I was probably 14 at the time. I wasn't that young, but I wasn't that old. And I didn't really know the timber we were hunting either. It was land that someone else, my dad knew. We were on his property. I didn't really know the place. And so my dad calls me, and he says, "Hey, where are you at?" I was like, "Well, that's the question, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And I look around, I have no idea where I'm at. And he's like, "Describe where you are." I'm like, "There's trees and leaves and snow." That's it. Sorry. I don't know how else to describe this place.
Yeah.
And so, it was bad. My phone, it was so cold out, my phone shut off. It quit working. So then I couldn't even call and talk to him. And I'm thinking I'm about to go man versus wild out here tonight.
Right on.
And, ended up, I got to the timber edge, and I just started walking a field towards a road, and he was out on an ATV looking for me, and he found me, and it was all good. But that would be my example, so focused on what I'm going after that I completely lose sense of direction in my life right now. An example of that in our wheel with the 4 categories would be becoming so, this would just be an obvious one, so money focused that I lose all relationships, lose total sense of direction. And it's I'm just focused on this goal, so I totally lose everything else on the way. Or health would be another one, trading health for career. I think people do that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to work myself to death because I want to work up the ladder. I think that's a loss of direction. So focused on the destination of living some way, some standard of life that I want to get to, that I end up lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how we avoid that.
It's good.
I think is a good question. How we avoid losing direction. My first thought to that, which I'm asking the question and then posing my own answer. I don't know if that's
perfectly
a good thing to
acceptable
do, but
on the Unfiltered podcast.
Okay. So what I'm thinking is having a map, having something that guides you is important. And I think we need a defined system to follow. And for me, I think for you, that's the Bible. I know for other people it may be something else, but I think having something clear that gives me direction for right now, how I am supposed to progress, how I'm supposed to get from point A to point B. I think that's important, because if we don't, we're just trying to figure it out. We're just chasing this thing that's running from us, and we're trying to follow it. And if we don't have the path, the way to follow, we may end up lost.
Yeah. So good.
I think a map, a guide, a way is important.
That's good. Where before we were talking about how to avoid the trap of pride or ego, and that is to become aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Which I would say having a way to follow, a guide, a map, system of belief, I think that reduces the pride, because you realize that I can't find my own way.
Sure.
I can't figure it out by myself. I am in need of something greater than me to get this done.
Your awareness of self has been elevated. So now, it's almost like respect for the journey, and humbleness in your soul to realize I need that map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
That's good. That's good. Awareness. And then once you're aware, having that map, it's good.
Follow it.
It's good.
Do it. Live it.
Yep. Right on.
What, do you have another one in our little Titanic rundown?
Another. Well, the next phase, there is three phases. Direction determines destination. The environment you are in the present determines speed of direction. The people around you and your personal attitude determine your environment.
Mm.
Your environment, which dictates the speed of direction. Direction determines your destination. Your environment is the mediating factor.
And so that last part, it says what? Environment's made up of the people and your attitude.
Yeah.
I think that makes up a lot of it. I think we create a lot of our own environment through our perception, which, perception is that's what they say, isn't it? Perception's reality. I don't know that that's totally right, but it is how you experience reality. Perception is.
That's a good statement. Yeah.
So I think in that way, your personal attitude, it's going to affect your environment because it's at least going to dictate the way that you experience your environment, whether it's the, total truth of it or not. It is how you feel about it. So that's gonna make a difference. And then, people. I mean, gosh, what an influence people have on your environment. I'm thinking about the band playing on the Titanic while it's going down.
Oh man,
they're just plugging away,
yep,
trying to keep the mood light so people don't panic.
Right.
Which may not have been the right thing. I mean, that's kind of a medicated response to a really bad situation. Like, don't panic. Yeah, maybe you should panic.
Short-term cover-up that really hurt a lot of people in the long term.
Panic might not be a bad thing in a situation that bad.
Yeah.
Or at least a enthusiastic response of some kind because, bad situation.
Right.
I think that may be too limiting, though, to just say it's your attitude and the people because, there is exterior factors that you can't control. I think about the derecho that we had in Iowa earlier this year. I mean, that's an environment that while that thing was going on, I mean, there was an environment created and that environment was present, whether you had everyone you know and love around you or you were totally by yourself. And maybe it affected the environment. I mean, I would say if you had other people there that helped you feel secure, I mean, that's a little bit of a different environment than if you're riding it out alone. And then attitude, I suppose that factors in as well. But I would almost say that the people and your own attitude have more to do with how you experience your environment and your reality than they do in always setting up.
And that's probably the word there's environment in that last statement and experience need to be exchanged. So it reads, the people around you and your personal attitude determine your experience.
Oh, okay.
It's probably how it should read.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, your environment you are in the now determines your, well, I don't know. I'll have to work it out there. But it's correct. Your experience and your perception influences how fast you go and where you're going is the moral of the story there.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Sure.
I mean, if we took it back to the blizzard example, I mean, someone who's really comfortable driving in those kind of conditions is going to go faster than someone who is stopped in the middle of the road because they're scared and don't know what to do.
Right.
Or the person that just doesn't go out at all because the conditions are so bad.
And the real principle probably within that third statement here that I'm trying to make is that you can influence what you experience. I think so much is you never know what's going to happen in life. Whatever will be, but yet I think there are choices you can make to influence what you experience on a day-to-day basis. And that is based on your attitude and the people you put around yourself. And there are some things about your environment that, I mean, I was born in Jefferson, Iowa, like I wasn't going to get to India being born here,
Right.
Like, so yes, there are some things that absolutely you're right that are like the derecho. That was something we all experienced uniformly. And that is to be taken into, because that's such a constant, it's almost like you can remove that from both sides of the equation,
Sure.
So I don't have it referenced here, but I get what you mean, and it should be in the equation. But yet, when it talks about what happens with my perception, my experience, I mean,
like how I experience environment.
Correct.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about like the derecho and I don't know if I'm saying that right, but we're going to look it up.
I usually say derecho.
Derecho. Is that the
I've
consensus?
also heard Derecho, but I'm going to tell you right now that
Derecho.
that's wrong.
Lindsay has spoken.
So say that one more time for us.
Derecho.
Derecho.
Rachel.
All right. The derecho. There were a lot of different reactions to that. I mean, there were people that I saw like come out of their houses just like crying and hands in the air and don't know what to do. I mean, totally helpless.
Sure.
Saw other people who were out cutting up trees, making money.
Yeah.
So, there's just a range of
was a range.
reactions. People, and I mean, probably the best response is all the people that came out to just help other people, those that went and supported the community or friends or family or others that were having difficult times dealing with what was created by that. So a lot of different reactions, but I think a lot of that does come down to how you perceive, how you experience your environment, because it's the same storm for everybody. But, I would almost say the character of a person comes out in those moments, which we've said that before too. But
Yeah. Which is
like,
why superhero movies have some value.
in Crisis, character is shown.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. All the fluff is cut away.
Maybe the depth of character is a better way to say
That
that.
is a good, but yeah, correct. It's what you're really made of.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
How deep does it go? Is it to the core, or is it just up to a certain point of pain or difficulty?
Yeah. Right. Titanic is a good movie to analyze. Like, what would I do in that situation? So I was trying to think logically, and okay, there's not enough boats. Ship's going down. Water's really cold.
Yeah.
I need a life vest. I need something to keep me warm, and I need something to float on.
Yeah.
So I need to spend the last remaining minutes making this happen. And that's kind of the thing that I don't really know if anybody did that. At least the movie didn't show it. I'm sure people were doing that. And
Panic, man.
panic.
Yeah. What I was thinking is like scoot over, Rose.
There was the obvious thought, right? This is the great. You should.
It's the meme. It's
There's
all
got to be
that.
a meme. You should throw a meme up there on the.
Gone?
I don't know. You should just meme Jack and Rose on the door. See what comes
Yeah,
up.
something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's an obvious issue. I mean, and I told you last night, I'm like, they tried one time to get him
One
up there.
time,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, it's going to tip over. I mean,
I guess there's no other way.
I would try again, but
yeah.
okay, Jack.
I'll say one thing in Jack's defense is he did allow her to get completely out of the water,
Yeah.
which was kind of the death
That's a big
factor.
deal.
Yeah. And so if they both were hanging half in the water
Mm-hmm.
and half out of the water, maybe they both freeze, or their odds are. Hey, Rose, according to this. Yeah, she's like fully sprawled out on a door. You'd think there is just another way.
I think there's got to be another way.
Right.
The other thing I thought is like, why aren't they ripping all the doors off the boat
Yeah.
and throwing them in the water?
Yeah, exactly. That should have been going on.
Like, come on, let's get some,
Correct.
or like rip up the deck.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of wood there.
If we know the ship is going down and we got an hour, we could build a makeshift raft real quick.
I think
We could
so.
throw that. Let's see how many of those can we get going.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's panic and people probably are going to ruin
Yep.
it.
So much frustration.
There's that. Correct. That is the variable that you would have to account for. But
The response of all the people.
yeah,
It's bad. It's
it is bad.
frustrating.
Just a terrible situation.
The one boat that went back out of 20.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah, very much
The
so.
fact that there were 20 people getting on lifeboats built for 65 or more. I mean,
Yeah.
frustrating.
Frustrating. It's
Yeah,
a frustrating
a lot of frustration.
situation. Yeah. I question whether, if the resolve someone would have on their own
Yeah.
versus being influenced by the mass hysteria, if someone who acted in panic in the masses would have reacted differently had there been a smaller, more intimate setting.
Yeah.
I think about I got into a Lost kick once, and there are people who they survived the plane crash and they're on the desert island, and they all just kind of like rally together because the response was a general like, okay, well, we've got to figure out how to deal with this. You know, no one like went off the rocker and just ran into the woods and died because they. So it's the influence of society is another big factor into your environment and what you experience, which determines your direction, which determines your destination, and being led astray by that cannot be wise.
Yeah. Which goes back to the people that are around you or the influence you allow into your life. Here's just kind of a thought. I mean, it's almost kind of scary how much influence we let into our life today, and really like unfiltered, I don't really want to say tested, but I guess tested. I mean, I think we let a lot of voices into our life today through whatever means of communication you want. I mean, I don't listen to much news, and I try to stay like off media most of the day.
Yeah.
But I do like podcasts. It's so easy to pick up like another podcast, and they'll suggest more of them. So it's like really easy to just add those voices. And I mean, I feel like I'm pretty careful about what I let in, who I let, influence me, speak into my life. But I mean, there's a lot of voices out there wanting a platform in your life. And I think we have to be aware of that and cautious about who we allow to speak in, because it's going to affect us. It's going to sway us in some way. And I think all too quickly we can get away from having our own perception and get into like taking on the perception of another, just following in with the mob mentality kind of thing.
Mob mentality, because everything affects you.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that you experience is is analyzed by your nervous system in your brain, and then your brain kicks out whether or not it needs to deal with this or not. And so like we're all sitting here, and we are not thinking about how our clothes are touching our skin, because our brain has decided that we do not need to experience that sensation anymore because it's not going away, right? But it's still that sensation is still going to your brain 100% of the time.
Wow.
So your brain's selectiveness
shuts that valve off. Wow.
Yep.
That's wild.
It is wild for sure. And so everything that happens around us is being realized by your brain and your body. And I think we do need to be a little bit more careful, just like you're saying, about what we allow in, because even if you don't realize that your brain is receiving this, it is happening.
Yeah.
And there's an effect to everything. For every effect, there is a cause. For every cause, there's an equal and opposite effect. More Isaac Newton right there, I'm pretty sure. Is it not? That's the man.
Right.
Should
Every
get a poster
action.
of him back here. Yeah, every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
That's right.
So even when we don't realize it, it is still happening. Oftentimes below the conscious level.
Yeah.
But that influences, your pattern of how you continue to receive things furthermore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got to guard what we let in.
The nervous system is fascinating, if I can just throw that out there.
Yeah, throw it out.
I'm a chiropractor, and I am often labeled a spine guy or a back doctor, and I literally, I care about your spine. I say this almost every day. I care about your spine only to the effect that it influences your nervous system. So your nervous system is what is relaying information from your brain to your body and from the environment into your brain. It is your nervous system. You need that thing working well in order for you to process information. And when you have a subluxation or an issue in that nervous system, it skews the information that your brain has to work with, and you may make an adaptation that is not to your benefit. That creates a symptom, and if that stays there long enough, then it will create dis-ease, and if that stays there long enough, you will create disease. All because your nervous system did not communicate properly. Communication is key. From person to person, from you to me, we better communicate, or else it's like texting, and you have content without context. You get misrelayed communication. But think about how exponentially worse that is in your body, in your brain, coordinating liver function without you even thinking about it a thing. And that gets thrown off a little bit. It sets your entire balance off on the inside of you.
Yeah.
Which is why you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Guard your eyes and guard your ears, because everything is being recorded by your brain.
And there's always a response of some kind. I mean, isn't there like always, well, that's the Isaac Newton thing again, right? There's
for
always
sure.
a reaction or a response. And I think, this is just semantics, but to say, reaction versus response, it's like, am I just going to do something that feels natural or comes natural, or am I going to do something intentional that I know is going to be beneficial for me? It's like, I would almost make the comparison, like if I broke my arm, my body will have a reaction to that if no response is taken. If I just allow
Correct.
nature to run its course, there will be a natural causing reaction, and it might heal all messed up and weird, and it could be bad. Mm-hmm. But if I respond appropriately, then I can help guide that back on course, straighten it out again, help it to heal the correct way. So I think response is important. Like response is the intentional, and reaction is the, unintentional. Just kind of a thought.
Love that thought. Big fan of that thought. Yeah.
So I think
that's the way.
I would almost say, like with the podcast and Unfiltered, I mean, some of it is talking about response versus reaction. Like, let's get away from just doing whatever the first, knee-jerk reaction to life is. Let's not just, run away or cower and hide or, explode out and make ourselves vulnerable in a situation where we maybe shouldn't be out trying to fight. But like, let's consider what's going on and find the most appropriate course of action to take in response to what's going on with life.
I love that. Let's respond appropriately versus react instinctively.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Big fan.
Nice.
Big fan.
Is that one of our axioms there?
I think we need to board it.
You think that's one of them?
I think we need to.
We got one today.
We've got one. We've created one for sure.
Sweet.
The difference between responding appropriately and reacting instinctively.
Say it one more time for all the people at home.
Oh yeah, just the Unfiltered podcast about deciphering. Oh shoot! Now I'm messing it up. But this is all about how to respond appropriately to life's demands versus reacting instinctively and making a less than ideal decision, which determines your direction, which influences your destination. We want to help take you to your ideal destination, but you need to put conscious thought, intentional action into how you respond to the things of life so that you maintain direction in the destination you want to go.
It's
Sounds
pretty good.
really close to things that you say at the office all the time.
Oh,
Like you don't want to just react to an injury. You want to prevent injury from happening.
amen.
Mm.
So
Preach it.
Support your health
That's right.
consistently rather than showing up for
Yeah.
your health when your health is in the ditch.
Lindsay has spoken. Build that foundation so that you have a firm place to stand when the going gets tough.
Sure.
Because it will. It's inevitable. It does for everyone.
Mm. Hopefully you're never on a ship going to the bottom of the ocean.
With no foundation. Correct.
Right. I'm actually, just as you're talking about that, I'm thinking, what would the response have been? And I'm pretty sure I would have tried to tear a door off. That would have, it's just my thought.
Right on.
I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. Hopefully you would have, influenced logic in thousands of people and they would have.
Like to think I would have,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Which I did read that water temperature was like 28 degrees.
oh my gosh.
Which is below freezing, which means, there's icebergs, obviously,
Yeah.
but you don't have long
No.
in water like that. You have minutes. You don't have hours to survive. So if circumstances put you in a position where you are not out of the water quickly,
Yeah.
you are in danger.
Very difficult situation.
Which is wild because then I was reading, just being nerd stuff. It was like 50 to 60 degrees when they left Liverpool is where they stemmed from. I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah,
or
that's
not.
what was on the ship.
The ship said Liverpool,
Yeah.
as in it was built there. 50 to 60 degrees there because, at the beginning of the movie, no one's wearing coats.
Sure.
But then middle of the ocean, they were in a position of unpreparedness
Yeah.
for the cold weather.
In the North Atlantic.
Yeah. On the same latitude as Rhode Island again.
Is that
Think
where
about,
it was?
Yeah. How cold Rhode
pretty
Island
cold.
was. Yeah.
Sad.
And I am in no way, shape, or form saying, "Oh, Titanic could have been totally avoided." No, no, like it was devastating, and I would have been cold. But
Yeah.
let's at least rip some doors off and give ourselves a fighting chance.
Yeah. But I mean, we have the benefit of hindsight too.
We do.
To look back and say, well, here's
2020.
Here's something else that you could have tried. But
Right.
yeah, it's just sad all the way around.
It is. It's just a sad story. Do you have a favorite movie?
Oh, you're doing this to me.
You've had an hour and 15 minutes to think about
But
this.
we've just been talking the whole time.
Subconsciously, your mind has been working.
I don't know. I think my favorite movie, it changes from time to time. I mean, there's not like one standby that I just like go back to and have to watch every so often.
Sure.
I mean, there's different ones that have, I don't know, don't even know that I would say it like influenced me in a great way. But I mean, there's movies I like and I kind of go back to them from time to time.
I respect that, by the way. You not having picked one.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
I'm not going to bow to your
My demand.
demand
Yeah,
to pick one movie.
for sure.
I just don't want to. I don't want to sum it up because I mean I don't feel like there's a movie that just encapsulates me or anything. I mean it's nothing like that. It's just I don't know. There's movies I like. There's things I like to pull out of movies. I mean
Yeah,
I've talked to you
same.
before about I like Saving Private Ryan. That one's up there. I like Gladiator. Just watched that the other night. I think that's a great movie too. Like the Band of Brothers miniseries. I think there's a time in my life where it was just meaningful in some ways, and there are things that I don't know does in me, like just watching it. I mean, there's emotions elicited from that movie as well as others. Lord of the Rings is one that I like. Star Wars. I mean, nerd out a little bit. I like Star Wars. Grew up watching some of those, so I think those are cool movies. I'm not like all in on the superhero thing, and I don't know. Just never really got into it. I'm not like
watch the right superhero movies.
Yeah, like Marvel.
No, actually, I started watching X-Men.
Oh yeah.
And like Batman and Wonder Woman. Those are my jam.
That got you in.
You gotta find the right superheroes for you.
Yeah, maybe that's the key.
Tom Holland, Spider-Man.
No,
Andrew Garfield.
I don't know, man.
That was a debate before the podcast started, is who was the best Spider-Man. And I'm firmly in Tom Holland camp. And the others are firmly in Andrew Garfield camp.
Well,
if we're going based off looks, Taylor and I are like Andrew Garfield for sure. But also, Tom Holland is perfect for the actual high schooler Spider-Man. So,
and I agreed that the Tom Holland movies seem better.
Sure.
But I don't think that's solely because of Tom Holland. Not to take away from his acting ability or any of that kind of thing, but I do think the framework that his movies are within is pretty sturdy.
That's fair.
Helpful.
they
That's
definitely
fair.
set him up for success there.
Yeah, I think so.
Captain America is a solid one for me. I mean, he's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy. Bridget's is Iron Man. She enjoys Iron Man the most, which there is a pure entertainment value to all of this. But yeah, I like the analytics of movies and the situations that they get put in.
Yeah.
And then just thinking it out and
Sure.
putting myself. Watching movies for me is relatively intense. Like I cannot frivolously watch a movie. Like
I can't just like zone out.
Difficult unless I've seen it multiple times. It's like I am there.
Yeah.
And I kind of like, I feel it, and it's intense sometimes, but which is the one that, maybe this is it too in me, 'cause The Count of Monte Cristo is my absolute all-time favorite, which is what Shawshank Redemption is modeled after, is The Count of Monte Cristo. And
Sure.
I'm stealing your thunder here because you were talking about influential movies to you, but the Count of Monte Cristo is maybe the best. There were significant wounds to go back to that happened, and he deals with them by the end of the movie, and there's just like a message of redemption, and it's good.
It's a good movie if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it is a good movie. You can learn a thing or two from that. Just the arc of his story character is it's good. Yeah, Jim Caviezel, amazing actor.
Like a good character progression.
Yes,
It's always
the best.
Always a plus.
The best. Yeah. Yep.
Some movies you don't really get that.
No. Right.
What about like Ethan Hunt? Does he have character progression?
I think so.
Yeah, in every movie.
Maybe not in. That's a tough question. Maybe not in every movie.
That's kind of my thing with like a really long series like that. I don't know how you can progress every time. I mean, just only so much, character growth that can happen when you're just out taking down the baddies and doing that kind of thing.
Between from 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the Ethan Hunt series, there's a pretty legit progression.
Yeah.
1 and 2 are really more standalones, and
okay.
2 you need to watch once and then forget about it forever. 1 you got to have the origin story. 3 is a very exciting 2008, I'm pretty sure. And then 4, 5, and 6 start to string together. 5 and 6, there's definite character progression.
Gotcha.
And he evolves as
What do you think about Ethan Hunt in comparison to James Bond?
Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot, actually.
All right.
Preparing for this question in a way is Ethan Hunt in most of his movies, it does not come down to a duel or mano-y-mano. It does come down mano-y-mano, man against man, or just good guy versus bad guy. But his intention is never to kill the other man. That is not his goal, to save the day. Versus James Bond, it feels like typically the bad guy always dies by James Bond's hand, one way or another. And okay, so in the Mission Impossible movies, the bad guy in 1, 2, and 3 definitely dies, but not. Well, I can't even say this because number 1 is definitely intentional. Like there's an explosion and the bad guy dies. Number 2, he was going to let the guy live, and then the guy came back and was going to shoot somebody, and so he killed him out of necessity. Number 3, it was another like death by necessity, and it was almost like what I'm trying to say here is there's a different moral standard that governs Ethan Hunt versus James Bond, and so his fight is about removing obstacles, getting out of the way so that he can meet the need of the mission. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does. And I haven't seen all the Mission Impossible movies, so if I'm off on this, you can tell me that. But I almost feel like the James Bond, like the 007 series, is more, I don't know, like more dramatized. It's like the villains are so much, more like they're out there kind of. And I don't know if that's the case with Mission Impossible. I just feel like with 007, I mean, you get some out there villains. I mean, especially like the older ones, and then even the newer ones, like with Daniel Craig, which I think he's the best James Bond. But
agreed,
I like it. So even some of his, like thinking about the one where the guy's like there's always the private island, and the one dude, I don't know who the actor is, but he's got like that piece in the side of his face that pulls out, and there's always the huge backstory about the villain. And so it definitely does take on more of that kind of dueling. It's like, it's not James Bond versus the world. It's like him versus the one villain.
Yes. Correct.
And it's about taking down the villain.
Yes.
Not about, I don't know, providing safety or counterterrorism or whatever Ethan Hunt's doing.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's a little different.
I feel like that's like typical old school superhero.
Spy movie.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, save the day.
Right. All the old Batman movies I used to watch were Batman versus one bad guy at a time.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody needs the supervillain in those movies.
Right. And Ethan Hunt, in a way, like it showed me how to think differently in a way. Because there will be, the movie is called Mission Impossible. Like the odds are fully stacked against you, and he will do something that will change the entire playing board. And it's like now all the variables are different, and it gave him a chance by flipping the board over. Versus James Bond doesn't necessarily. He's gonna outshoot you.
He's just like the super version of a person.
Pretty much.
It's not that he like adapts. It's just that he's
better at everything. Yeah, correct. Right. Yeah, you could make the case in the first one, Casino Royale. He adapts because I do like his character arc over the 5 movies. It seems like he kind of adapts and molds over time. But I'm trying to think of a good example, and Mission Impossible when he just flipped the whole board over and then changed the whole criteria. But
you were talking about one at one point where he's like, is he at gunpoint or something, and they're gonna like kill someone else, and then does he like take the gun and he's like, well, I'm gonna like he's like the only one who knows the code or something. He's like, well, I'll just get rid of myself then, and then it's all over.
Correct. He memorizes a ledger that has access to like $2.4 billion.
Yeah.
And then he wipes the ledger away. So he can't be killed if this other guy wants the money. Yeah. Correct. That was a good one. And then by doing that, he was able to leverage safety for his friends, and then he was able to escape.
Yep.
And then even use that situation into a chase where he captured the bad guy.
Sure.
So he totally flipped.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's like almost like you don't see it coming, like you're trying to figure out how it's all going to play out kind of movie. I don't know that James Bond has as much of that. I mean, those movies are definitely more, it's just better.
Yeah. He's
just going to
the ultimate man.
Yeah.
The alpha
outman you.
The alpha male.
The boss hog alpha.
Right. And there's some womanizing aspects to that too, that Mission Impossible does not.
Does Ethan Hunt not have love interests? See, that's how little of the series I'm really familiar with.
He definitely has love interests, but they're
Correct.
not like, I don't know.
It's not like James Bond.
I feel like they're not like side chicks like in James Bond.
Right.
Yeah, that's not not a good.
Side chicks is a good, for sure. I mean, Ethan Hunt gets married and then.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which one did that happen in?
Number 3.
Is he married in 4?
So he is, but is not. And so that's actually the storyline of number 4 is he can't guarantee her safety. And he can't guarantee the world's safety by being with her. So they devise a plan to, it's wild. It's hard to explain, but you'd have to watch it.
Yeah, I just have to watch them.
Number 4 is a keystone, a pivot. And
Yeah.
I could go on and on. I truly am fully entertained by them.
Which one's your favorite, if you're going to pick one?
5 and 6 blend together, so I can't really. 5 I probably like the best, but they go together. So it's the last 2. That's when they really became high level story mode, high level films.
Gotcha.
The guys are looking at a movie poster that we have down here.
That's right. That's why we keep
That's why they're
looking over the shoulder.
Yep. My favorite James Bond movie, I think, is Skyfall.
So good.
I think I just like the backstory. I don't know. That's probably what does it for me. Seeing the roots, that old like English thing. I think it's cool.
It was a totally unique Bond film.
Yeah, it was.
It was. Yeah. Yeah.
Plus Skyfall, that was like major song for a long time.
Adele.
Adele. Yeah, Adele.
For sure.
Adele, not Adele. That's a town in Iowa.
Adele.
Adele, Iowa.
Friendly place to be.
Indeed.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Titanic, relationships, direction, destiny.
Correct.
Ethan Hunt,
James Bond. Jason Bourne, we didn't talk about him, but he's another.
Could factor in.
Another factor in. But closing thoughts on episode 5.
Episode 5. Not too much. I appreciate the, tying in of content from like movies and that kind of thing. I think that's a good source to draw on. I'm sure there's others we could talk about, go deeper on some things, but I really like the Titanic analogy of sailing to a location and how do you avoid sinking your ship?
That's right. Yeah.
No one wants to do that.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope listeners find that valuable.
I hope so too.
I would do a movie review. I would totally do that. I hope we can see some comments, 1 or 2 movies. It's just like, hey, talk about this next time.
Yeah. Or leave your thoughts about the Titanic.
Please do. Put your favorite meme on the door.
Yeah.
Jack and Rose, do
best door memes.
Something like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sure.
Outro us out here and let's wrap it up. Dr. Philip, it's been a genuine pleasure.
Pastor Isaac here, enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us.
You betcha. See you next time. Have a great day.